Hey everybody, hope everybody's doing great. Hey, coming to you from VetPartners team headquarters right in Columbia, Missouri, in our podcast room, doing the Mindset podcast. And this one's going to be about the fixed mindset. And it really came from, I was at VetPartners last week in Las Vegas. All right, hey, we're popping this in the middle. Kelsey's going to do this, and post-recording, she brought up maybe some people don't know about VetPartners. Thank you, Kelsey, for bringing that up. VetPartners, read right from the website, is a nonprofit association comprised of veterinary business experts. We're the resource every veterinary professional needs. You can find them at vetpartners.org. Dr. Peter Weinstein and Tracy Gray Walker both recommend I join VetPartners, and I'm really glad I did because there's a bunch of people doing the same things we do. There's veterinarians in the room, there's industry experts in the room, so it really helps to, I think that's, when I talk about growth mindset, that organization is built on the growth mindset that you can't have people doing the same thing in the room together, doing things for the future of veterinary practices. So a little bit about VetPartners there. Their mission, VetPartners fosters a community of members better prepared to meet the business needs of the veterinary profession by providing education and networking. There's CPAs, attorneys, business brokers, architects, IT, human resource, practice management, marketing, financing. There's pet health insurance talk was there, industry associations were there, pet food manufacturers, laboratory, diagnostics, drug manufacturing, compounding, pharmacy. So lots of stuff happening there. So that's a little about VetPartners. If you didn't know about it, check them out at vetpartners.org. Thank you. And that fixed mindset just is kind of repeated with me. We're all guilty of it. I mean, everybody is. It's one of those things that what separates these great performers from good performers is fixed mindset. And so I wanted to bring back some feedback from there, some observations I had, and break this down into a few different segments. But, really on the fixed mindsets, we got to think about how you show up, how they hold us back, and what we can do to shift toward a growth mindset. This is what this mindset's about. The growth mindset is just such a freeing thing for everybody. And again, coming from the VetPartner annual meeting, it was a great meeting. It had some great connections, great content, and there's growth mindsets there. Don't get me wrong, but I think the fixed mindsets always just stand out. So I'm going to break down why we default to fixed mindsets, how it affects the way we connect with others, how it stops us from solving real problems, and finally, how finding common ground might be the key to moving forward. All right, so let's dive in. The business first mentality. How many times have you gotten in a conversation when the first thing someone says is, "What do you do?" I think that is very common. What's interesting is that at VetPartners, we had a talk about not doing that. And instantly after that talk, I had someone come right up to me and say, "What do you do?" And I, jokingly said, "Hey, we just had to talk about this. Let's get to know each other first. Let's ask, hey, what about you, your family, those things." And so, it's real easy for us because we're excited about our businesses. I don't think this comes from a place of like, "Oh, look at me," or negativity, but it really just is that fixed mindset to go, I have to talk about my business. And I think what we do when we do that is that we think the key to success is just to push harder. And by pushing harder, if I talk about my business more, that's going to get it. But I think if you look at it from a different angle, before you say anything about yourself, ask two meaningful questions about the other person and see what happens. So that stood out to me. That's always an interesting one because I've had that happen before where I was at a conference, it's been over a year ago, and the keynote speaker said the same thing. Said, maybe ask someone, "Hey, how can I help you today?" And here's how hard this is and why I want to continue to talk about this. I met that keynote speaker about an hour later. And the first thing the keynote speaker said to me was, I bet you can guess it, "Hey, what do you do?" This is a hard concept to get down. It takes practice. So the business first mentality, think about switching that to, again, before you say anything about yourself, ask two meaningful questions about the other person. All right. The other thing I got to on the fixed mindset is the illusion of a unique approach. Now, I'm guilty of this. How many times, I've been like, "Hey, I've got this unique approach. What we do is great." And really the question is, how often is that actually true? Fixed mindset makes us believe that our way is the way, doesn't it? Doesn't it make it just think that it's the only way to do things? So our way's got to be the right way. But a growth mindset, on the other hand, says, what can I learn from others? How can I adapt and improve my approach? And where am I possibly wrong? So this unique approach is really trying to get us to stand out, right? And I think if you actually want to stand out, you have to stay open to feedback, new perspective, and different ways of thinking. Because the moment you decide you've already got it all figured out, that's the moment you stop growing. Think about that. The moment you stop growing. It's a unique approach. All right. The next one, and hey, this is always an important one. The problem with avoiding accountability. Now, this really stood out. We had a roundtable, and they gave us a discussion topic about an issue of the practice. And the issue of the practice was that they're overwhelmed, high client demand. And so, at the end of the day, you got to come up with, well, what does that mean? Pretty vague, right? So we wanted to put some boundaries in place around, let's just identify some problems and work from there. Now, during this talk, we were, getting some suggestions, getting things going, but I said something here that really it caught everybody's attention. And now we're in a setting here that it's not with owners or clients, things like that. It's just a group setting. And that I tend to be pretty blunt. I just said the owner screwed up. And when they said, what's going on with this problem? I said, the owner screwed up. Boy, did I get some eyebrows raised. And I'm going to go, you can't say that. That's not right. Well, maybe it wasn't the best way to bring it up. But at the end of the day, the fixed mindset response, it's defensive, right? Instead of maybe could have been turned into a way to avoid discomfort and say, hey, what do you mean by that? Tell me more. And also like, hey, how could the owner have accountability without blame? Because that's the problem, right? Is that when you say you screwed up, you just take that blame on. And that gets you in that fixed mindset instead of saying, how can we work together for a better solution? So yeah, the problem with avoiding accountability is big. Because at the end of the day, we all have to look internally to figure out what have I done with the situation. So that one was pretty interesting. So I think about if you want to solve real problems in the veterinary practice or in any business, you got to get comfortable with hard truths. So maybe in that table setting, I could have said it a little different. So when I talk about accountability here, probably could have. And maybe it would have gotten a different result out of that. Anyways, but, we've got to take a look at the hard truth. So do not avoid accountability. Now, this was an interesting part. We had a chance to have a panel talking about the mid-level practitioner and had a debate on it. And what it really got to was, and mine got to, how do we find common ground? I think what happens with fixed mindset is that when you're in the fixed mindset and you're thinking your way is the unique way, your way is the only way, you forget to look at the fact that both sides of this debate were actually trying to get to the same place. They both cared about access to care for the animals, for the clients, as the demand has risen for veterinary care across the country, especially in places that are hard to find veterinarians. So, that fixed mindset really, instead of them working together towards a shared solution, they were completely against each other. So as I looked at the growth mindset on that, that's what we get back to us is debate, divisiveness on something we are trying to get to the same thing, the same way. Got to ask yourself, where's the common ground? What do we actually agree on? How can we work together to create something better? And the real challenge isn't choosing one side or the other. It's breaking down the barriers that keep us from finding a collaborative solution. So again, what that brought up is it's not about the mid-level practitioner debate that was going on the stage. It's about finding that common ground. And as I tied through these segments here, going from the unique approach, the business first mentality, avoiding accountability, right? When we get down a path on a debate like something like that, really accountability is to go, as we said before, am I wrong? And it's hard to admit that when you've gone down that path already a far ways to go, I might be wrong. I might need to take the other person's point of view. That's so important to that. And maybe some common ground can be found. So final thoughts on this, as we were at this meeting and everybody's talking about, having the best veterinary industry you can have, doing the best you can. This thing popped in my mind, said, this is a lot of this is about gaining an edge. And it's interesting because you think about gaining an edge is about doing better than the next person potentially. And that really was like, does that work with a growth mindset? How does gaining an edge fit with a growth mindset? And I had to do some thinking on this. And on the surface, it felt like it doesn't fit. It sounds competitive, right? Gaining an edge. Sounds like you're trying to get ahead of everyone else. But then it occurred to me, what if the real edge comes from staying open, adaptable, and willing to learn? That hit me because maybe the real competitive advantage isn't having all the answers. Maybe it's being the person who's constantly evolving, improving, and finding ways to work with others instead of against them. I don't know. I'd like to get your feedback on that. Think about that because we're definitely in a competitive world. And if we're trying to work together for common solutions, trying to gain an edge, maybe it's about gaining an edge for yourself and how you interact with other people. Now, the other thing that occurred to me on this was it's application of the edge, if you will. I think I say when people gain an edge and do something with it, maybe it wasn't that they gained an edge, it was that they actually did something with the application of the information and knowledge that they gained. And gaining an edge might just be the way people say that happened out of it, but really they got it from being open and having a growth mindset. So, to conclude today, where have you seen fixed mindsets holding people back? And how are you working on shifting towards a growth mindset? I want you to think about that. Where have you seen fixed mindsets holding people back? I didn't go into VetPartners thinking about fixed mindsets or growth mindsets. But thankfully, since doing this podcast and those things, it made me more self-aware and self-conscious about that. Maybe able to catch myself when I did have a fixed mindset, thought I needed to say something. And so I think that if you approach the day thinking about that fixed mindset, it'll really help you in your growth mindset. So hey, always, if you found this episode helpful, share with a colleague or a friend. Like us on Facebook, Instagram, like us on YouTube, Spotify, subscribe all over the place. We really love to see that. And if you have thoughts, questions, shoot us a message on socials. We'd love to break down feedback on the mindset. Thanks, everybody. Till next time. All right, you guys.